Broadcasting from the confines of an abandoned radio station in the secluded apartment building of high strangeness from the foothills of the Colorado Rockies, it's time for full disclosure of the topics they told us were off limits. Hello there, I'm Connie Willis in for Ian Punnett, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Tonight, strange lights in the skies of Sedona, also open lines, so time now to turn off those lights. Join me for another interesting evening of conversation, much needed education, and the chance that we might get a little closer to the truth of what lurks amongst us and what is beyond. I'm Connie Willis, and this is Coast to Coast AM. You're listening to Coast AM. Hello there, Connie Willis in for Ian Punnett tonight. Hope you are doing well. I hope you're staying warm. I know it's snowing where I am. It's white. It is totally white. I love it. And if you just look at the sky too, it's like this little whiteout. Absolutely adore snow. If it's going to be cold, it might as well snow. That's just my little slogan. I know a lot of you have to drive in it. That's not fun. I'm sorry about that, but maybe set up the situation where you don't, and it's kind of nice. Enjoy it while you can. Don't hate snow. It's good stuff. Thank you for joining us tonight. Should be a really good evening. We've got open lines coming up later. Again, I'm Connie Willis, and my show's Blue Rock Talk and Connie After Dark and Connie Willis, the podcast. You can find all that information at conniewillis.com. One of my shows, it's Blue Rock Talk. It takes you out on creepy hotspots, and we have live investigations of strange lights, hauntings, and also Bigfoot. Now, it just so happened that we just had one last week, and it was at the Bradshaw Ranch. And because of that, Jeremiah Horseman, who was with us, Horseman, who was with us on Coast not long ago, and Alexandra. Also, Tom Dongo, who was on Coast with us not long ago, and Ben Lone Tree and Z all basically took care of me, telling me everything about the Bradshaw Ranch, taking me there and having experiences there at the Bradshaw Ranch. It was absolutely amazing. And yes, things happened. They did. It was amazing. But you can find that on Blue Rock Talk with my creepy hotspots. Now, the reason I told you, not just to join me, absolutely, of course, but because while I was out there, I also met up with Melinda Leslie, who our guest is tonight. And this is Sedona. This is already a magical, mystical, spiritual area, right? The vortexes, the strange lights, all of that happening. Healings, spas, resorts, a place to get away from it all. Well, I ended up getting to meet Melinda in Jerome, which is like this haunted town, right? Just very well known for that. Interesting place. There's a whole show on that itself that we've got to do at one point. But that's where I met her. We were all chatting away, and then we barely got to an area that she wanted to take us to, where she does these sky tours, and she looks up at the sky with military grade night vision goggles. So we got to do it for about 15 minutes. That was really about it. And in that time, we saw activity. It wasn't as much activity as she was seeing because we got out there later, but we got to see them. And the third generation is the strongest so far that I've been able to look through with goggles. So I'm hoping at one point I get the fourth and the fifth. I can't wait. I think that's as far as it goes as of right now. One of my Blue Rockers, Chris Nygaard, he's an expert with that in the military, and it's so fun to hear about all that stuff. I got to connect them at one point. But it was a lot of fun, that little short time. And then tonight, it was an opportunity to bring Melinda in to tell us what it's all about, because she was really excited and very enthusiastic of what's been going on recently in the skies over Sedona. So Melinda, she's been on Coast many times. You've heard her before. She's a professional psychic, medium, teacher of psychic development and paranormal abilities for about, let's take a guess at 45 years or so, right around that time. She started when she was 2. We'll go that route. And she assists her reading clients in transforming their lives with evidence. We're talking help and information from their spirit guides and loved ones who have crossed over. Also been an investigator of paranormal phenomena for over like 45 years as well. Expert in EVP, all that good stuff that we all love, right? She's also an investigator in the field of the UFOs, 35 years of experience, 13 years she's been the owner of, this is what's interesting, UFO sighting tours in Sedona, where those great tours should be, right? She's conducted a thousand, it's 1,760 tours with the use of military night vision goggles. Now I'm reading this. She's the only UFO sighting tour with a money back guarantee. Now I know, I'll just say this to her. I'll just say this to her now. Let's bring her up right now. Welcome back once again, Melinda Leslie. How are you?
Great, Connie. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you can hear me just fine.
I hear you well, but I got to change something here. So, okay, in the bio, it says you've conducted 1,760 tours, but I thought because of me the other night, it was 1,761.
Yes, it was. So now
Right.
I'm actually up to 1,764 now.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Wow. You work fast.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
1,764. Yep.
And you only count it if you see something and you're like me. It's like, hey, I'm batting 1,000 with my activity with my show. And so you are too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Luckily we always have signs. As you read, I have a money back guarantee that I guarantee signs your money back, and thank God we see them all the time, or I'd go broke in a hurry.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's brave. You got courage. That's what that takes to say that. But the Sedona guys, they never disappoint. And so tell me about this, because I know you've done many things and you do many things and you've been on coast several times, but this week, and I guess maybe the most recent 2 weeks, or maybe more, you've been seeing quite a bit of activity happening in Sedona. What's going on?
Well, like I said, we always see stuff anyway. So, normally, over 13 years of doing this to hit 1,763 previous tours, 64, I guess. Yeah. But who's counting, right? No, just kidding. But normally, we see stuff stop, turn, change direction, fly in formations. We've had full structure. That's when you see all the hard edges on an object. On 45 of the tours, but 63 fully structured crafts, and some of those tours were more than one. And then we see formations. We see things zigzag. We flash at them with lasers. We get them to power up, and of course, we're very careful. We never, in case anyone's wondering about planes and stuff, we never flash at planes. I cover laser safety very precisely with my clients. To make sure they're very, very aware of laser safety. And but otherwise, when we rule out something and realize it's not a plane at all, we'll flash at it, and we get things that flash back at us in response. And so that's like a normal tour. But all of a sudden, I think it's 76. Right before coming on the show, I checked the calendar, and I'm pretty sure it's now, because it started the 27th of September, we started to see something different, and it was starting later. Now, normally, there's this angle of sunlight thing. When we do our sightings, we have the most sightings in the first 2 hours as soon as it's dark, because even though it's dark where we are, what we call night is just Earth's shadow, and it hugs the ground. And as we rotate away from the sun, that shadow extends further out into space. So we always have the most sightings in the first 2 hours. By the way, that's when you would see the most satellites as well, for the same reason. They're reflecting sunlight. So everything in the upper atmosphere is still sunlight. So this was the end of September, going into October. We were seeing stuff that was starting later. We would normally end the tour by 9 at that time. And one night I just happened to be out a little later with my clients. We're still having sightings. We started to talk, and so we're beyond that angle of sunlight thing, and we started to see these amber lights. Amber means anything gold, orange, or red in that spectrum, like the color amber. So we started to see these lights come up from behind the hills and also come in the sky and come down. And my clients were like, "What's that stuff?" And I'm like, "Good question." And we started to see this. And it's continued for 76 nights now since it started that we're seeing this stuff. Now, a couple of those, either I didn't have a tour or it was way too cloudy. So it's actually, I feel like I've seen it at least 50, 55 nights out of 75. I say 55 nights. That's being conserved out of 75, or even if I said 50 out of 75, we've seen this. So my tours, I've taken out a few predominant researchers here in town, and friends visiting like yourself, to see this, and so anyone I'm taking out with me, whether they're a client officially on one of my tours or just somebody else, someone I know locally, a friend or researcher, they're seeing it. And I've had a couple of really, really highly informed people go with me with like military and intelligence backgrounds because, interestingly enough, at the same time we're seeing this activity that, again, it's just been happening for 70 days. I've been doing these tours for 13 years, and a lot of return clients of mine who've come out during the 70 days. One of them is a return client who I've taken on my tours now like 10 or 12 times. She happened to come now. She's come like 4 times or even five now within those 70 days because she was here for like a whole month in town, so she kept coming. And she said, "Melinda, in all the years I've been coming on your tour on and off over the years, I have never seen this." And I had friends in the area say, "We've come out with you 20 times, 30 times, like Jeremiah, and saying, we've never seen this. So it's like we're seeing stuff that we've never seen before, and it's just phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, and I can talk more about why we're seeing it there and everything. But it's phenomenal what's going on.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. What do you think it is, and why during this time?
Okay. Well, that's a loaded question. It's complicated. First off, we have, as you know, because you've come out here and you spent quite a bit of time with both my friends Jeremiah and Alexandra, and with Tom Dongo. Tom Dongo is a veteran researcher in the area, well known for writing books about the history of Bradshaw Ranch and the history of there being an underground base here. And I know we're going to get much more into that. But where we're seeing this new activity that's happening all of October, later in the tour, interestingly enough, it's moved up now and happening earlier. This activity that we're seeing, this increased stuff, so we're starting the tour seeing what we would normally see on every tour at about the frequency that we would. But then all of a sudden when this new stuff is happening, it is happening for every night for about an hour, give or take. Some nights it's been like 45 minutes, sometimes maybe an hour and 15, but give or take for an hour of time. And then when it ends, it ends. But where we're seeing it is over these hills that are just outside of town. And under those hills and beyond them, there's a lot of lore and evidence that we have a deep underground military base. Some of your listeners may know that that's often referred to as a DUMB, a DUM. That's an acronym for Deep Underground Military Base. And now there's nothing on the surface. In fact, back behind those hills, it is wild, rough mountain terrain. I tell everyone, if you look on Google Earth and you look at the images, it's a whole lot of nothing. There's Sycamore Canyon at the entrance to that, which is well known for hiking and whatnot. There's a few scattering of some ranches, but once you get beyond those, there's 7 miles, and yours and my friend Jeremiah's done a lot of research about this. There's 7 miles of nothing, like absolutely nothing. It's deep crevices, rugged mountain terrain, pine forests, some creek beds. I mean, it is nothing. So there's no reason for instance, another thing I haven't really gotten into is while this is happening, while we are having all these sightings come in the air, come down, go behind those hills, come up from behind those hills, at the same time, military aircraft are coming in and swarming. How do we know they're military? Well, I cover this. I start every tour that I do with about a half hour, or sometimes 40 minutes, I try to shorten it up, though, of talking about what people are going to see, not going to see, and how to know if it's satellites, how to know if it's drones. I cover all that in great detail. And then planes and helicopters and anything else built and flown by mankind. Well, planes, if they're commercial or private, this is a kind of a general statement, but if they're commercial or private aircraft, they tend to have a single evenly spaced blink. Those are called acquisition lights. They're the strobes on the plane. So other planes and helicopters aren't running into them. They have to be visible. So they have this evenly spaced blink. Military aircraft have, and I've learned this from taking out aviation experts who taught me the difference, lots of military pilots and whatnot. And if it has a fast double or fast triple pattern, like a fast double would be like blink, 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 and a fast triple pattern, blink, 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 blink. Either one of those would be military aircraft. And so we get really good on my tours about knowing when it's commercial or private versus military aircraft. And what we're getting out over these hills is a swarming of military aircraft, all of them, interestingly enough, or a huge majority of them, having a triple blink pattern. And then it was a friend of mine, well, I'll say this, he lives here, Ron James of MUFON TV. He does media relations for the organization MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and he's an award-winning documentary filmmaker as well. And so I twisted his arm and said, Ron, you got to come out with me and film this and whatnot. And he did. He was only able to one of the nights, but he did. But right away, he was saying he was saying that these are clearly helicopters, and he said they're not flying around a lot. Jets would cover a lot of airspace, and these are helicopters. And at first I went, what? No, I thought most of them were jets, because occasionally ones come and circle over us that clearly are jets. So we're getting probably F-16s, F-18s circling around over us. Again, according to aviation experts I've taken out. I mean, what do I know about jets? I've learned it because I take out a lot of highly qualified individuals that every time I do, I learn from them.
Yeah, you got to do this research. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Whether there's someone who's, who works with satellites currently, engineering them, building them, launching them, currently, or whether they're, whether they work with aircraft like an engineer, or whether they're a pilot, commercial or private or military. And then I take out a lot of astronomers, a lot of physicists, astrophysicists, plasma physicists, I mean.
Yeah, you better know your stuff as well.
Yeah. So I've learned, 13 years later and 1,760 some odd tours, man, I've absorbed a lot of information, to know these things. And then I turn around and share that with my clients. But Ron was saying, Melinda, these are hovering. These are a lot of these, because he did this with me in early October. And I was like, you're right. These are helicopters. And now it's proven itself over and over again. So we still get some jets that are coming in circling. I mean, we get quite a few, but the majority of the ones hovering over those hills are helicopters. Well, I want everyone to understand, when you look at Google Earth of those hills, there's nothing. There's no buildings, no runways. It's rugged mountain terrain where nothing could even land in any form. And you go, why would there be? And when I say a lot of military, it's, sometimes, Connie, when we've seen this activity going on, right over those hills. So in a distance of what's just, if you hold your hands up and, you measure, it would be, and I've done the pin drops again on Google Earth. It's only like a distance of 7 miles or less. And yet we're looking at it from a distance where I usually take my tours and it's just outside of town. It's an area known as Cultural Park for anyone who does know the area. And we're looking out that direction, and just over those hills, what's called Kasner Mountain, Black Mountain, Bradshaw Ranch is right in between those in the middle. Over that whole area, again, there's nothing. Once you get beyond those hills, in front of those hills, there's a scattering of ranches, and at night you'll see ranches lit up, and then, houses. There's a housing track in one area, and then there's dirt roads back there, and people coming and going from the area in their car headlights. But once you get beyond those hills, there's nothing, and so there's no reason to have military swarming over those hills. And I started to say, I kind of interrupted myself, that at times we counted right over those hills 20.
Hold that thought, Melinda. Hold that thought, Melinda. It's Melinda Leslie that we're talking to. You can find her at UFOsightingtours.com, UFOsightingtours.com. That's her website. And we're talking about what she's seeing over these Sedona skies. I saw them just the other day with her, too. It's Coast to Coast AM. Connie Willis here with you. Just last week, I was doing one of my shows, Project Creepy Hotspots within Blue Rock Talk. You can learn more at ConnieWillis.com. But while I was out in Sedona doing this show, it was Bradshaw Ranch. So Jeremiah Horseman, I always say his name wrong, Horseman, he's got like 20 names. And then Alexander Caldwell, Tom Dongo, Ben Lone Tree, and also even Z, all helping me out learning about the Bradshaw Ranch, then introducing me to Melinda Leslie, who does the sky tours. In fact, you can find her information out at UFOsightingtours.com. I met her in Jerome there, that haunted town there in Sedona. That was interesting. The food was delicious too, by the way, but we got to talking, and then that's where we finally got out and got to see the skies in an area. We didn't get to go as far as she wanted to go to see the activity, and it got a little later. Like she's talking about, there's a certain time area where the activity is really happening, but we got about 15 minutes of looking through that third generation, the night vision goggles, and it's just unbelievable what you can see with those. Again, I can't wait one day to hopefully get the fourth or fifth generation, which I know those are hard to come by, but looking at the third will just absolutely just blow your mind. And this is where people see the fleets and so many other things that you'll never see with the naked eye. However, we were actually seeing some stuff with the naked eye. That's how full Sedona is of so much activity. So it was really great to meet her and see these things. And one of the things we saw was we definitely saw a zigzag, and also saw, you could see where she was talking about the helicopters and that kind of thing. Now, Melinda is with us, Melinda Leslie. She's with us here talking on Coast to Coast. She's been here many times before. But I wanted to, before you get back into your story, Melinda, because I want to make sure you get it all out. It's very important. It's just amazing. And I know you kind of got to go in order along the way, but there was something I had noticed I'd never really recognized before, where people say the structured UFO. And that's where you look for the edges to see if it's round, cigar shaped, triangular. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, exactly, Connie. When I say structured craft, I mean you're seeing the hard edges. Otherwise, majority of what we see on my tour is a light that's high up. Now, it's, and I always explain this to my clients, it's still a structured object. It's just too far away to make out a distinct shape or to see the hard edges. Structured craft is stuff close enough that you look at it, and like you were just saying, you say, oh, that's a disc. That's a triangle. That's a cylinder. That's a diamond shape. That's a boomerang shape. We've seen all those and many others on my tours. When we've seen structured craft, or what I call full structure, 63 times, meaning we're seeing all the hard edges. And by the way, I only count when everyone on the tour sees it. So it's like a couple of the people saying, oh, we're seeing a disc, or we're seeing a triangle, or we're seeing a cylinder. If everyone on that tour does, and I limit my tours generally to 10 people unless I have a big tour group together, so I've done a bunch of those. But generally when it's a mixed crowd of, this family, this couple, whatever, someone by themselves, I'll limit it to 10 people. And so I only count the structured craft when everybody on the tour has seen it. So I would easily have double as many tours with people seeing structure if I counted the time that 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 10 people thought they saw it. I really want everyone to see it, so I try to only count when everyone sees it. I mean, sure, there might be one person who fell asleep or got curled up in their car because they got cold or something, but so far everyone on those tours saw it when we saw the 63 structure craft. Which I know is a huge amount. Since moving to Sedona, not only have I had 63 structure craft on my tours, I've had daytime sightings. I've lived here now 13 years. In fact, March 1st will be my 13-year anniversary for being here. And I have seen structure craft during the day here in Sedona 17 times. 63 at night on my tours and 17. It's hard to keep all these numbers straight. 17 during the day. And which I know is that's insane. It's too many. I figure even when I say those numbers, no one's going to believe me, unless they're clients or friends who've been with me.
No, good stuff, because I know, this is an area where people see all that. The very first night, I went out there we saw it right there from the Bradshaw Ranch area. There we saw it happening around us. And every time I've gone to Sedona, I see those kinds of things for sure. But I want to get back to your story because I want to learn more about, there's this tunnel for the underground base, and you had you had pointed down to like this big business down there, and you said, okay, that's this place, and there's the lights, and there's the helicopters, and there's a tunnel. So tell us all that stuff.
Well, okay. Well, and I was thinking before the show, I had this kind of idea of getting right away to why what we're seeing is significant. Why, am I on here tonight doing this?
Sure.
And why am I wanting to get the information about what we're seeing recently? I think it's a timing issue right now because of how it relates to what's going on in disclosure currently, which we'll get into. But I thought to tell everyone, why I think it matters. And my clients ask me every night out of the last 70 nights or the 55 or whatever we've seen this, is they said, what are we seeing? Why is this going on? So I think to jump right to that and then go back to the things we're seeing and the underground base and everything that you just brought up. Oh, you said something interesting. Well, it's fresh on my mind. You just said something about you saw some with our own eyes. About a third of what we see each night normally in all my tours in 13 years of doing it. About a third of what we see each night you can see somewhat with the naked eye, and the other 2/3 are just up higher, farther away, and that's the beauty of using military night vision. They increase light by about 50,000 times, so you're going to see 50,000 times more stars than you see with your naked eye, and then that's the beauty of helping us see this. But about a third of it we see with our own eyes. Well, this stuff that we're seeing recently and seeing later is stuff that we're seeing a huge majority of it with our own eyes. We get what are called power-ups. They get big and bright. But I'll get more to that in just a minute. While it's on my mind, I want to make sure I cover why this is so important. Okay, now people ask, what are we seeing while we're out there, and what's going on with this? And I say, here are your 3 choices. First off, this underground base, which we'll get more into in just next, we'll cover that. This underground base is known for having humans and ETs working together. Now, I know that sounds crazy and unbelievable.
No, you have coast people here, so we're good. It's totally believable by everybody. You do not have to ever discount anything here.
So this is exactly. So this is covert humans and covert military, black ops. It may be contractors. I'll get a little more into that later, but it may be contractors. There's some new evidence suggesting some of that's going on there. But there have been insiders that have come forward, contractors sent in there to work who've said this, as well as abductees, extraterrestrial abductees, who are known as the MILAB cases, MIL for military, AB for abduction. I have been on this show about that subject before. I've been researching that subject for 35 years. And some of those folks also make claims, to go to these underground bases, including the one we have here. So you go back to, okay, given all that and additional evidence that this is, and, that's been seen out at Bradshaw Ranch. People see military and ETs together. The Bradshaw family, I don't know if Jeremiah shared stories with you, and as well as Tom Dongo. I hope they did. But I know stories that they've shared with me, and I've heard from other people. And it's the Bradshaw family, which that was originally a cattle ranch. And by the way, everyone out there, if you don't know what Bradshaw Ranch is, it's our version of Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, very famous TV show about it and books written about it. Well, Bradshaw is our Sedona's version of Skinwalker, if you will. And there's other such ranches known for a lot of paranormal activity here throughout the Southwest, like in Utah with Skinwalker. And then there's a couple of different ranches. I think there's 4 or 5 of them here in Arizona alone known for such paranormal activity, of which Bradshaw is one. There's also some others in Nevada, et cetera, et cetera. So going back to choice number 1 of the 3 choices is ETs and humans working together. So then what we're seeing is ETs coming and going. But when I had I had a client recently here on his honeymoon with his wife. Of course, with the wife's honeymoon, but young couple in their early.
I hope so. I hope he's with her on his honeymoon.
Yeah. No, they'd gotten married here in town, and so they stayed a week for their honeymoon. Okay, and I was so honored that for one of the things they chose to do on their honeymoon is go out on my tour. That's awesome. And that night it happened to be just them, and so we actually got out a little bit closer to the activity because I said, "Hey, are you guys up for extra adventure?" And then he ended up telling me he had a background with the DOD, Department of Defense, and the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. And he said, "Have you met people like me?" And I go, "Yeah, like 1 in every 10 of my friends."
Yes.
People know me, know that that's very true. I have a lot of those kind of folks. It comes with being very involved in the UFO field and UFO subjects. You meet these people and you become friends with them. Anyways, but he ended up saying to me as we're seeing this, he goes, "This is a huge military operation." And he was pointing out that the way, for instance, when these craft were coming in the air, military were coming up, the helicopters and jets were sometimes coming up from the hills to meet up with them, and then kind of fly around them as if they were escorting them in. And then we saw stuff come up from behind the hill, and then again a lot of military swarming around them and kind of escorting them till they would go up, and then eventually the military would kind of stop, but the craft would still go up and disappear. And how do we know they're not planes? They were disappearing. Planes don't do that, obviously. And they were coming up from behind the hill, so clearly things satellites don't do. And they were doing what we call power-ups. They were getting very big and bright as large amber lights. I'll get into that more in just a second. But so going back, choice 1, it's ETs coming and going, and there's this huge, as this guy with the DIA, DOD background, and another friend of mine with a military background, without my saying anything to him, he goes out with me, and years ago he was in the military for a while, and he goes, "Melinda, this is a military operation." And I've had a few clients, a few older gentlemen with military backgrounds and stuff, immediately go, "You're seeing a military operation." Now, you go, "Okay, this is military. Why is it UFOs?" Well, we're seeing stuff defy physics. We're seeing it fly in formations. We're seeing it make right-angle turns. We're seeing it power up and disappear. And yet it's coming and going, coming in the sky, appearing out of nowhere, coming down, going behind the hills, and then coming up from behind the hills, powering up to giant amber lights, and then going and either immediately disappearing, we call that winking out, or dimming and going up and then disappearing. And they're often in flying of groups of 2s and 3s, like formations, not every time, but a lot every night. And my clients and I, and return clients, we've joked about this. We're so used to always scanning the whole sky for anything. Yeah, the tour starts off like this, but when this activity, the last 70 days is going on, we're focused on those hills because the payoff is constantly. There's 2, 3, 4, 10 things in the sky going on constantly. I mean, with maybe a minute here, a minute there of lull. And I have to explain to my clients, if you come back on my tour and this stuff stops, we can go 10 minutes without seeing anything. Like this is insanity how much we're seeing.
Right.
And it's, I tell people we're seeing like 50 things in an hour or more. I mean, yeah, some nights we saw 10 to 20, but a lot of the nights, and particularly lately, last couple of weeks, we're seeing 50 or more in under an hour's time. And so again, going back to my choices, I know I'm all over the place, but it's just a very complicated thing to even cover for everyone so they grasp it. So choice number one is this ET craft coming and going, but this huge military operation, as the client and the friend of mine pointed out, and other clients, you go, okay, this is a military operation. This is a lot of military swarming, 20 sometimes at a time, swarming around these objects. It's a military operation with ET craft coming and going. I mean, 50 in an hour. Can anyone even wrap their head around that much ET involvement with the covert guys? I mean, it's mind-boggling. So that's choice one. Choice two is, what if it's ET craft in our possession? And someone on my tour said, what if the ETs are training us how to fly stuff? I said, okay, maybe, who knows? Or just stuff that we've shot down, crash retrievals, whatever, given to us, whatever the method or mode, that we could have ET craft in our possession that we're flying. But if that's the case, we're seeing 50 every night for 70 nights in under an hour's time. That would be a lot of ET craft in our possession. Now they might be the same ones, but why would they keep flying them every single night in the same hour? It's like, what is going on?
Because it's fun.
I know, yeah.
That would be a blast.
Choice number three, and probably a lot of your listeners are chomping at the bit for this one, which is reverse engineered technology. But again, the implications are staggering. If this is reverse engineered technology, and this is stuff we built, we're flying, but it's creating these huge plasma fields, which is what the amber is. I'll get into that because I've learned that from physicists and plasma physicists going on my tour. These are huge, giant plasma fields, and then these objects are disappearing or suddenly shooting up. And you're going, wait a second, this is reverse engineered stuff. We have 50 a night flying in, close to 50 a night, flying in and out of Sedona from a deep underground military base. And do we have that much reverse engineered technology that we'd be flying that many that has the ability to shoot up into space and disappear and come in space, appear out of nowhere, then go down and go behind the hills? I mean, that's a lot of really...
That's a lot. That's three different ideas. So when we come back, because we're going to take another break here, when we come back, we will ask her what she thinks it is, what her intuition says it is, and maybe we'll get that. Let's just go there and see what happens. Melinda Leslie is who we're talking to. You can find her at UFOsightingtours.com, UFOsightingtours.com. Melinda Leslie. And stay with us later on tonight. Open lines. Connie Willis here on Coast to Coast AM